Well, thank you so much for the time that you've taken today. I really appreciate it. It's so nice to see you again. Jay, we met about 3 weeks back in Milwaukee for the signature talk in Wisconsin, which was so incredible, where you learn about the best way to really talk about your story and what you provide and how you can help people and really connect with the audience. I know I found it completely life-changing. There was so much that I had not really realized when it comes to making speeches and how to effectively carry the message. So Jay, it was such a pleasure to meet you all those weeks ago. It was amazing, and I love what you're doing. So thank you so much for the time that you've taken today.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me. It was amazing, meeting you and everybody else at the Signature Talk. And you're right. It's really, really important to be able to kind of bring your language together so that you can, convey your message. So I think it was really good self-development there. And again, I appreciate you having me on the call today.
Yeah, of course. Well, I'd love to know, we talked a little bit and met with my dad, and you had mentioned a few things, and you had even stood up in front of the entire group, about 40 or 50 of us, right as you wrote your speech, and kind of gave a little bit summarization of it. But I'd love to hear, why don't you tell people a little bit about what you do? Because what you're doing is actually really incredible work.
Absolutely. So I'll take you a little bit back, back in the day when I was kind of in the, experimental stages of really understanding where I wanted to be, back to my teenage years. And when I was a teenager, I was in that type of position where there were so many things that I wanted to achieve and wanted to, conquer, but I didn't really have the type of guidance to do so. So what helped me really understand the school systems and really pushing myself into a level of education was really going out and seeking that education from others. So for the past 10 years, I've really, put myself in immersive situations where I can start to learn from coaches, from mentors, from seminars, online courses. And that's really helped me, get into the real estate game. So a primary background on myself is that I'm a real estate developer and investor back home in Canada. So I'm actually all the way from Canada. I just moved to the United States about 7 months ago. And real estate has always kind of been my domain of, my engine is what I like to call it. So that's where I kind of make my money, and it's kind of my day-to-day career. But my passion now has come out throughout the years, which is truly coaching. So I've launched my coaching business, and that's some of the stuff that you heard at the conference there, which was now coaching and mentoring. Coaching and mentoring people to really understand, how to communicate the right way, how to be able to deal with some of the internal feelings of humans that we feel, whether you're a teenager or you're an adult, and be able to really help you, take it to the next level when it comes to some of the things that you need to accomplish in a day-to-day. My passion project, though, among all of this has been really mentoring teenagers. Because I was in that same spot, 10 years ago, getting out of high school, being a little confused with where I wanted to be and what I wanted to be, and all my, my parents putting pressure on me, and, you had teachers saying something, I want to really be able to be that voice and that guiding force for people that are a bit confused on where they see themselves, what they're passionate about, and how they truly want to impact the world. So that's where I've kind of made it my mission now to get into this space of coaching young people into the world of this world that we live in now. Although it's technologically savvy, it's also still bringing up that brain concept on some of these thoughts that we have, the self-talk that we have in our brains, some of the emotions that we deal with on a day-to-day that are sometimes uncomfortable to share with our family and friends. So I've kind of made it my quest here in the United States to launch my coaching program now to really help those that want to unlock their passion and true power and take it out into the world.
Wow, that's really incredible. And I think that's such an amazing topic, especially I'm a teenager myself right now. And I know you weren't one not too long ago either, so you completely understand. But it is a very interesting conversation. And I think that communication has definitely changed a lot in the social media era, where people are almost scared to talk about their weaknesses because there's just such the pressure to look so perfect on maybe social media or in front of people that they're not willing to have the same conversations. And I'm not really sure what life was like pre-social media because most of my life has been social media. But I can definitely see that with social media, there's just so much obsession on looking perfect that sometimes it's harder now to have those conversations of, hey, it's not perfect. This was really hard. This was a time when it was hard for me. So I'd love to know, and of course there's just so much that goes into it, but what is something that maybe a teenager could learn to start applying, like right as they finish watching this, is like a step in the right direction to finally opening up to having those conversations with people that in their life that care about them?
Absolutely. And I want to just, acknowledge and agree with what you said. The world that we live in nowadays, it's, there's pros and there's cons to it. It's amazing that social media is able to connect the world together for us to be able to, interact and be able to share photos, videos, and everything. That's amazing. But like you mentioned, the opposite side is that we've created this kind of superficial world. We've created this image that, people need to be. When we think of success, we think of having money and cars and clothes. When we think of, like other things, we use social media, looking good. You have to be thin and you have to be perfect. We categorize and label ourselves in different ways. So the one recommendation that I'll give you right off the top of the head is get rid of labels. Labels are the one thing that are holding back true potential, because what happens with labels is that, yes, things, everything, this water bottle, it was named a water bottle for a reason. And there's a water, it's a bottle. Now we put it together. It was created from a thought. Now, the thing with this is that with thoughts, and this is why I love diving deep into the brain, because our brain creates thoughts, but we also have the ability to change thoughts. Now, sometimes what we think in our minds is that, when a thought is there, like if that's called a water bottle, it's only going to be called a water bottle. But what we can now do in our minds is say, listen, when it applies to me and my personality and what my thoughts are, I shouldn't be labeling it, because if I continuously label it, I'm restricting myself. So if I feel like there's a certain image that I want to look like, or there's a certain type of fame and fortune that I want to achieve, if you label it as in, I want that type of fame, you label and you restrict yourself. Instead, you should be open-minded to the concept of you being able to say, well, instead of labels, what do I actually feel? How do I feel? And the biggest thing that I'll say as a takeaway for all those that are out there, especially you young people out there, is that remember one thing: you're allowed to be emotional. You're allowed to think negative things. This world always says, oh, you got to be positive and you got to, but you're throwing a lot of stuff that hits you. Out of the 7 common emotions that humans feel, always remember joy is just one. All 6 other ones are negative now. You have fear, you have anger, you have sadness, you have contempt, surprise, and disgust. You have all of these common emotions that we feel on a day-to-day basis. So we're kind of set up to fail. So what I would recommend you guys do is start to look into these kind of emotions and start to understand what they are. And, I always give this example, it's like when you're feeling something, whether it's, let's just say you're feeling sad and you don't really want to share it with your parents or your friends or people around you, you're feeling a little sad, you're in your room and you're reading your book or whatever you're doing. And you start to think to yourself, well, I'm feeling sad. Well, I always take it as in like this. Sadness is like someone coming through your door, your bedroom door. Let's make it into a little monster, a monster that's coming through your door, and that's sadness. That's the monster of sadness. And what he does is, or she, is he comes and he sits on top of your head. And what happens is that then you start to feel sad. So you start getting emotional. Maybe you go through this self-talk that you're going through. And what's happening here is a quick strategy that you can use to eliminate that label and get him off your head, is just to acknowledge the fact that you're feeling that way. Tell yourself and give yourself permission to feel a certain way. If you're feeling sad in your room at that moment, I want you to think to yourself, you know what? It's okay for me to feel sad. I don't necessarily need to share it with anybody right now. I just need to make sure that I can agree and accept it myself. Because the minute that you do that, what happens is that when sadness walks through that door, you can acknowledge the fact, sadness, you're here, but you get to sit on the ground. You don't get to sit on my head anymore. I understand that you're here, and I know we're gonna have to deal with you at some point, and I need to do this properly, but you're not allowed to actually make me feel uncomfortable anymore. And if you use this little strategy, and I did it as an example for you, just to kind of put it in perspective, but what that allows your subconscious mind to do now is to be able to disassociate away from that feeling of emotion. So you can allow that person or that feeling to sit next to you, and it's almost like bullies. Why do bullies bully? They want a reaction. So what happens with these bullies called sadness or fear or anger is that when you don't give them the attention, you realize or you recognize, okay, you're sitting here, but I'm not going to give you the attention now. What do? They get bored and they move on. So this is a quick little strategy that you can use right away and test it out. Test it out on the next thing that you're doing, the next emotion that hits you where you're feeling, angry that, someone said something to you, or you're feeling sad and upset because, so-and-so said this. So try that as a strategy. And again, we can always dive deeper into the subconscious levels. And that's why I've come out with my course program that really helps people understand the brain and really be able to now go into those, psychological concepts of emotions and mastering emotional control.
Wow, that's really amazing. And I'm definitely be able to share a little bit more information on how people can connect with you and connect about that course, because I think that's such a great thing for people to start out learning. Of course, I'm sure you're very familiar with the Disney movie Inside Out, which I immediately took parallels, because the main message of that movie is that we have all these emotions and we don't have to label them, like you said, as good or bad. They're just there. It's just how we are. And when you take away that scariness of like, okay, this is a negative emotion, this is a really terrible emotion, I can't be feeling anything like this. When you take that pressure away, it seems like, oh, okay, this is just something that's going to come into my life. It's going to be here for a few minutes and I'm going to work on moving it away. And when you kind of just take it and make it so small to the point where it doesn't affect your entire day, your week, your month, your year, it can become so much easier. And I know sometimes it's a little bit harder and sometimes it's easier said than done, but that's a great way to just start, because you always have to start somewhere.
Exactly. It's just something, just to start wrapping your mind around the neural pathways that are going through your brain in order for you to feel those things. Because this is all driven by chemicals. And I don't want to go too technical on you on this call, but I want you to understand it's all about that brain. And when we have these types of thoughts and these emotions, there's strategies and ways to now make sure that, you can actually control them the right way. It's not about suppressing them and getting rid of them. It's about making sure that you're taking them head on, being able to deal with it the right healthy way so that it improves your mental health moving forward.
Yeah, that's a really great way. And I think mental health, especially for teenagers, has definitely become a lot more of an easier talking point than maybe it was. Honestly, I remember being a kid and it still wasn't that popular. I remember if any kid really felt anything like that, it was just like, oh, you're just a kid. You don't really understand emotions. What do you know what it's like to feel sad? You don't have bills to pay. And I'm like, well, that makes no sense. But I definitely can see the change that it's finally coming. And I think it's such a great change because when you start younger, when you understand your emotions, when you're able to deal with them in a more healthy way for your own mental health, oh my gosh, it's so much easier when you're older. And just having those conversations younger and younger is just a great way to deal with them, because then otherwise, it's so much harder when you're older and you have other responsibilities and you're like, I can't take time to understand my emotions right now. I have so much to do. But, those are just some of the ways that I see it, especially as I've grown up nowadays.
Absolutely agree.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for the time today. I really appreciate it. I've learned so much, and I think that the action step that you had mentioned is just an amazing way to get started. And it's definitely opened the gateway to all the other things that I know you can offer and you can help other teens and other people deal with. And that's amazing. So if people want to get in contact with you, what's the best way they can reach out?
The best way to reach out would be my website, www.nextgenwealthy.com. That's NEXTGEN wealthy.com. And the most amazing thing about the name itself is that's why I'm here. I want to be a guiding force. I want to be able to provide knowledge to young folks that are out there that are watching this or understanding that, let's take more control of our brain. Let's get into those right spaces with the right type of environment and people. When I was young, I will say, I didn't really have a lot of mentorship. It took me many years to start going out there and having, the confidence and the communication to go find someone that could help guide me, somebody that had been through the trenches. So my biggest recommendation that I would give as well too is, find a mentor. It may not have to be me, but go out there and actually seek a mentor that's in the space of somewhere where you want to be, where you want to achieve. Somebody that's been through some of those trenches that can help guide you to expedite that time. Because you're 100% right with what you said. At this age now, we're just kind of classifying it as oh yeah, no, you're just growing up. You're supposed to feel like that. But that's not the case. The case is that these are crucial years that your body is changing, your mind is changing, your emotional capability is changing. So this is a real time that, honing in on this now is going to set you up for the future the right way.
Definitely. That is really powerful. And I'll be able to link that in the description so people can find that a little bit easier, because I know you offer such amazing service to those who really need it and can help with it. So thank you so much, Jay, for the time today. I super appreciate it. It's been an amazing, and there's so much value in this call. So thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Thank you so much for having me.